A narrow fragment of ancient parchment rests beneath protective glass, its surface rough with age, its edges broken, and its faded ink forming lines that once passed from one human hand to another. There is nothing impressive about it at first glance. No golden border, no royal seal, no monument carved into stone, just a damaged piece of animal skin carrying words about heaven, angels, forbidden knowledge, and secrets that humanity was never allowed to receive freely. Yet this small fragment points toward one of the most unusual claims preserved in the ancient Book of Enoch, that heavenly beings possess knowledge beyond human reach, and that not every secret of creation was meant to be placed into human hands. The Book of Enoch describes a world in which knowledge has boundaries. Angels are not presented as simple messengers who appear whenever humanity asks for answers. Some are guardians, some are guides, some are witnesses, and some cross a line that they were never supposed to cross. The Watchers are the clearest example. They descend from heaven, interact with humanity, and begin revealing knowledge that changes the world below them. They teach skills connected with metals, weapons, enchantments, celestial signs, and other forms of hidden understanding. The text does not describe this exchange as harmless education. It connects the disclosure of this knowledge with violence, corruption, and disorder. That detail matters because it establishes the central idea before the book ever reaches its later heavenly visions. Knowledge exists, but access to knowledge is controlled. Enoch himself experiences this restriction. When he is taken through extraordinary regions, he does not simply walk into heaven and examine everything independently. He is guided. He is shown particular places. He is given explanations. Certain things are identified for him, while other boundaries remain beyond his reach. The pattern is repeated so often that it becomes part of the structure of the text itself. Revelation is selective, and that creates the mystery. If Enoch was shown certain heavenly systems, what was he not shown? If the Watchers were punished for revealing knowledge that belonged beyond humanity's normal boundaries, what other knowledge remained protected? And if the heavenly beings described in Enoch were responsible for guarding, transmitting, or restricting information, could the text be preserving an ancient belief that humanity was never supposed to possess complete knowledge of the unseen world? The evidence becomes even more interesting when we remember that Enoch is not merely preserved in one late manuscript. Ancient fragments discovered among the Dead Sea Scrolls demonstrate that Enochic writings circulated centuries before the Christian era. The surviving fragments connect the book to an ancient Jewish environment in which questions about angels, heavenly realms, judgment, forbidden knowledge, and the structure of creation were taken seriously. This does not prove every supernatural claim contained in the text, but it proves that the tradition itself is ancient, and the central pattern is difficult to miss. The angels know. Humanity does not know everything. Some knowledge is revealed, some knowledge is forbidden, and some knowledge remains behind a boundary. That boundary is where the investigation begins. The first real clue appears in the account of the Watchers, because this is where the Book of Enoch becomes specific about what happens when heavenly knowledge crosses into the human world. The text does not describe the Watchers as simply observing humanity from above. It describes them descending, taking human women, and becoming involved directly in the affairs of the earth. But their greatest offense is not merely their presence. It is what they begin to reveal. Knowledge that had belonged to another realm is transferred into human hands, and Enoch connects that transfer with consequences that spread far beyond the individuals who received it. In the 8th chapter of 1 Enoch, several forms of instruction are associated with the Watchers. Metalworking appears. Weapons appear. Techniques involving adornment and cosmetics appear. Enchantments and celestial observations appear. The text presents these teachings as part of a larger disclosure of knowledge that changes human behavior. The important point is not whether every ancient technique should literally be considered supernatural. The important point is how the text classifies the knowledge. It is knowledge that crosses a boundary. That distinction becomes clearer when the heavenly response begins. The Watchers are not treated as teachers who simply made a mistake. They are treated as beings who violated an established order. In the following chapters, heavenly authorities respond to what has happened on earth. The corruption associated with the Watchers becomes part of the reason for judgment, and their punishment is presented as a consequence of. crossing limits that were supposed to remain intact. This gives us the first major piece of the puzzle. The Book of Enoch does not portray heaven as a place where every being has unlimited permission to reveal everything it knows. There are rules, there are assignments, there are boundaries, and there are consequences for crossing them. Enoch himself becomes evidence of the same system from the opposite direction. When he is taken through heavenly regions, information comes to him through guides. He is not shown everything at once. He is instructed about specific places and specific phenomena. But he never becomes an independent master of heavenly information. His knowledge remains dependent on revelation. That is the key. The angels are not simply withholding information from Enoch. They are controlling the conditions under which information reaches him. Sometimes they explain, sometimes they identify, sometimes they reveal a destination, and sometimes the revelation simply stops. This makes the Enochic universe different from the modern idea of unlimited discovery. In modern science, the assumption is often that every part of reality can eventually be investigated if enough evidence and technology become available. Enoch presents a different boundary. Some realities may exist beyond ordinary human access, not because humanity lacks intelligence, but because access itself is controlled by a higher authority. That idea appears again in the astronomical sections. Enoch is shown the movements of the sun and moon and the appointed paths of the stars. The text treats these systems as established laws. They are not created by Enoch's observation. They are explained to him by heavenly instruction. The information is therefore presented as something humanity receives rather than something humanity owns. And that leads directly to the question of what remains withheld. If Enoch was shown the movements of celestial bodies, why was he not shown everything about the origin of those systems? If he was taken into heavenly regions, why was every boundary not opened? If the Watchers knew certain forms of knowledge, why were they prohibited from revealing it? The text does not answer every one of these questions. That silence is important. It prevents us from turning the Book of Enoch into a list of secret facts. Instead, it gives us a framework. There are levels of knowledge, different authorities, and limits on revelation. The modern reader may be tempted to imagine that the missing information concerns advanced technology, hidden civilizations, or scientific discoveries. But Enoch itself does not make those claims. Its concern is heavenly order, judgment, angelic responsibility, human corruption, and the boundaries between worlds. That is enough to make the passage significant without inventing details the manuscript does not contain. The deeper mystery is therefore not a missing machine or a concealed artifact. It is the boundary itself. Why does the text insist that some beings know more than humanity? Why are certain revelations permitted while others are restricted? Why are the Watchers punished for crossing that line? And why does Enoch repeatedly receive knowledge through intermediaries? The answer given by the text is consistent. Revelation has limits. Humanity can receive knowledge. Humanity can discover. Humanity can observe. But humanity does not possess unrestricted access to everything that exists beyond the visible world. That is the claim that survives across the ancient manuscript tradition. And that is what makes the final question unavoidable. If the boundary was placed there deliberately, then what remains on the other side of it? The deeper Enochic material becomes more precise when Enoch is taken beyond the ordinary world and shown the structures that govern creation. These passages do not present heaven as an open space where every secret is immediately available. They present it as an ordered system with boundaries, appointed locations, movements, and authorities. Enoch is guided from one place to another, and nearly every revelation comes through an explanation from a heavenly being. He sees something first, and then a guide tells him what it means. The order matters. Observation comes before explanation, and explanation comes only when permission is given. In the sections describing Enoch's journeys, he encounters mountains, valleys, waters, fiery regions, chambers, and places associated with judgment. Some locations are described as being reserved for particular purposes. Others are connected with the righteous or the condemned. The language repeatedly separates one region from another. The universe is not presented as one undivided space. It contains levels, boundaries, and designated places. That same structure appears in the astronomical material. In the 72nd chapter of 1 Enoch, Enoch begins receiving detailed information about the movement of the sun. The text describes gates, through which the sun enters and exits, with changes taking place throughout the year. Later sections describe the moon and the stars. The language is systematic. Measurements appear, cycles appear, appointed times appear. Whether a modern reader accepts the ancient cosmology literally is a separate question. The important evidence is that Enoch believed the heavenly order contained information hidden from ordinary human observation, and that this information could be disclosed through revelation. That is the pattern. A human being sees the sky. A heavenly guide explains the system. The explanation reveals something that ordinary observation alone could not provide. And the guide determines what Enoch is allowed to understand. This is why the concept of withheld knowledge becomes central. Enoch is not shown an infinite library containing every answer to every question. Instead, his revelations have boundaries. He is shown what the guide chooses to explain. Sometimes the explanation ends with a description of a location or process. Sometimes the text moves forward without giving the complete reason behind it. The limitations are part of the revelation. Then the later visions expand the pattern from the structure of creation to human history. Enoch receives visions concerning judgment, generations, rulers, and the final division between the righteous and the wicked. These revelations concern events that humanity cannot normally observe in advance. Yet even here, the knowledge arrives through symbolic images and heavenly interpretation. The message remains consistent. Information about the unseen world exists before humans receive it. Humanity can be shown portions of that information, but humanity does not control the source. That distinction becomes even more important when compared with the Watchers. The Watchers reveal knowledge independently and are punished. Enoch receives knowledge under guidance and is treated as a recipient of revelation. The contrast suggests that the issue is not simply possessing information. The issue is authorization. Knowledge has an owner. Knowledge has a boundary. And knowledge has a proper time for disclosure. This gives the ancient text a structure that is surprisingly clear. The angels are not merely characters appearing in visions. They function as guardians of access. Some transmit information. Some withhold it. Some violate the boundary and are condemned. So when people say the Book of Enoch claims angels are withholding something from humanity, the stronger reading is not that every angel is secretly hiding one specific object or document. The stronger reading is that the text presents knowledge itself as regulated. Some information can be transmitted. Some information cannot. Some beings may reveal. Others are forbidden to reveal. And humanity remains below that boundary. The mystery is therefore not simply what the angels know. It is what the ancient text says humanity was never authorized to know. And that question becomes even more important when we examine how this ancient material survived, because the manuscripts themselves carry evidence of a long history of preservation, translation, loss, and recovery. The words about hidden knowledge survived even when the original world that produced them disappeared, leaving modern readers to reconstruct the message from fragments and later witnesses. What survived was not a complete explanation of every heavenly secret, but a record insisting that some secrets were never meant to cross the boundary between heaven and humanity. The strongest evidence for the age of this tradition does not come from a modern interpretation. It comes from the manuscripts themselves. Among the Dead Sea Scrolls discovered near Qumran, fragments of Enochic writings were preserved in Aramaic, connecting portions of the book to the Second Temple period. These fragments matter because they move the evidence much closer to the world in which the Enochic traditions first circulated. The surviving manuscripts are damaged, incomplete, and separated across collections, but together they establish that the ideas found in Enoch were already being transmitted long before the medieval copies most readers know today. That creates an important distinction. The text was not simply created in a later period and placed into the mouth of an ancient figure. Its traditions existed much earlier. The Qumran fragments contain material connected with the Book of Watchers, the astronomical sections, and other Enochic writings. Scholars compare these fragments with later Greek and Ethiopic witnesses to reconstruct the wording and understand how the text developed through transmission. Every comparison matters because a manuscript tradition can preserve a sentence in one language while another witness preserves a different form of the same passage. And this is where the question of withheld knowledge becomes more complicated. The ancient text itself has survived through layers.e becomes more complicated. The ancient text itself has survived through Aramaic fragments, Greek evidence, Ethiopic manuscripts, different periods, different scribes, different communities. The complete form of 1 Enoch is preserved primarily in Guizi, the classical language of Ethiopia, while earlier fragments demonstrate that its traditions circulated in Aramaic. This means that when a modern reader opens a translation of Enoch, they are looking at the result of a long transmission process. The original ancient context is separated from the modern reader by centuries of copying, translation, and interpretation. Yet the central descriptions remain recognizable. The Watchers reveal knowledge. Heavenly authorities respond. Enoch receives visions. Angelic guides explain hidden structures. And boundaries remain. This is why the manuscript evidence is so important. It prevents the discussion from becoming dependent entirely on modern imagination. We can actually examine fragments of the ancient tradition and compare them with later witnesses. We can ask where passages appear, how they differ, and which themes remain consistent across the surviving evidence. The discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls also changed the history of Enoch's preservation. Before the scrolls were known, many scholars had to rely heavily on later manuscripts and translations. The Qumran material provided much older witnesses. It showed that Enochic traditions had a deep history within ancient Jewish literature. The book eventually became separated from the biblical canon in most Jewish and Christian traditions, but separation did not mean disappearance. The text continued in Ethiopia, where the complete Enoch tradition survived in manuscript form. Centuries later, European scholars began examining these Ethiopian copies. Richard Lawrence published an English translation in 1821, bringing the work to a much wider audience. Then the 20th century supplied the older fragments. The result is a remarkable chain of preservation. A text connected with ancient Jewish thought survives in fragments. Later manuscripts preserve larger portions. Translations carry it across languages. And modern scholarship compares those witnesses to recover the ancient wording. But there is still a boundary. The manuscripts tell us what Enoch says. They do not reveal everything Enoch claims exists beyond human access. That distinction is crucial. The ancient witnesses preserve the description of hidden knowledge, but they do not remove the boundary surrounding that knowledge. Instead, they reinforce the idea that Enoch himself received only selected revelations. The manuscript survived, the questions survived, but the withheld knowledge remained exactly where the text placed it, beyond the final boundary of what humanity was permitted to see. And that may be the most important discovery of all. The mystery was not created by modern readers searching for secrets. The ancient document itself was built around the idea that revelation has limits, that heavenly knowledge can be transferred under specific conditions, and that some information remains outside the reach of ordinary humanity. The surviving fragments, therefore, do more than establish the age of the text. They preserve the framework of its warning. What is revealed can be studied. What is missing can be questioned. But what lies beyond the boundary remains beyond the page. The most important distinction comes when the language of Enoch is examined without adding modern assumptions to it. The book does not plainly identify one physical secret that angels are hiding from humanity today. It does something more specific. It describes categories of knowledge that belong to heavenly beings, knowledge that can be revealed under authority, and knowledge that becomes dangerous when transmitted without permission. That distinction is easy to lose when the ancient passages are summarized in a single sentence, but it changes the entire meaning of the investigation. The Watchers provide the clearest example. They do not simply possess knowledge. They teach it. Their instruction includes practical skills, celestial observations, and forms of hidden understanding. The text connects these teachings with the spread of violence and corruption. The problem is therefore not merely that humans became more intelligent. The problem is that knowledge crossed a boundary without authorization. That same principle appears in Enoch's own experience. When Enoch is taken through heavenly regions, he is repeatedly guided by angels. He sees places that ordinary humans cannot see. He receives explanations that are unavailable through normal experience. But he never becomes an independent master of heavenly information. His knowledge remains dependent on revelation. That is the key. The angels are not simply withholding information from Enoch. They are controlling the conditions under which information reaches him. Sometimes they explain, sometimes they identify, sometimes they reveal a destination, and sometimes the revelation simply stops. This makes the Enochic universe different from the modern idea of unlimited discovery. In modern science, the assumption is often that every part of reality can eventually be investigated if enough evidence and technology become available. Enoch presents a different boundary. Some realities may exist beyond ordinary human access, not because humanity lacks intelligence, but because access itself is controlled by a higher authority. That idea appears again in the astronomical sections. Enoch is shown the movements of the sun and moon and the appointed paths of the stars. The text treats these systems as established laws. They are not created by Enoch's observation. They are explained to him by heavenly instruction. The information is therefore presented as something humanity receives rather than something humanity owns. And that leads directly to the question of what remains withheld. If Enoch was shown the movements of celestial bodies, why was he not shown everything about the origin of those systems? If he was taken into heavenly regions, why was every boundary not opened? If the Watchers knew certain forms of knowledge, why were they prohibited from revealing it? The text does not answer every one of these questions. That silence is important. It prevents us from turning the Book of Enoch into a list of secret facts. Instead, it gives us a framework. There are levels of knowledge, different authorities, and limits on revelation. The modern reader may be tempted to imagine that the missing information concerns advanced technology, hidden civilizations, or scientific discoveries. But Enoch itself does not make those claims. Its concern is heavenly order, judgment, angelic responsibility, human corruption, and the boundaries between worlds. That is enough to make the passage significant without inventing details the manuscript does not contain. The deeper mystery is therefore not a missing machine or a concealed artifact. It is the boundary itself. Why does the text insist that some beings know more than humanity? Why are certain revelations permitted while others are restricted? Why are the Watchers punished for crossing that line? And why does Enoch repeatedly receive knowledge through intermediaries? The answer given by the text is consistent. Revelation has limits. Humanity can receive knowledge. Humanity can discover. Humanity can observe. But humanity does not possess unrestricted access to everything that exists beyond the visible world. That is the claim that survives across the ancient manuscript tradition. And that is what makes the final question unavoidable. If the boundary was placed there deliberately, then what remains on the other side of it? The text never gives us a modern answer, and that silence should not be filled with invented evidence. Instead, it leaves a more precise possibility. Perhaps the withheld material is not one object, one formula, or one hidden location, but the larger reality that Enoch says exists beyond human perception. The book repeatedly describes a universe larger than what human senses can measure, while also insisting that revelation comes in portions. That combination is what gives the ancient account its enduring tension. Enoch sees enough to know that there is more, but never receives everything. The reader stands in the same position. We can examine the words, compare manuscripts, study the ancient languages, and trace the history of transmission. Yet the final boundary remains outside the document. The book can describe the gate, identify the guardians, and record what was permitted to pass through. It cannot force the gate open, and perhaps that is precisely the point. The mystery of Enoch is not simply that angels possess knowledge. It is that the text presents knowledge as something governed by authority, timing, and boundaries. Some things can be revealed. Some things must remain concealed. And humanity, according to the text, has never been given unrestricted access to everything that lies beyond the visible world. The ancient parchment returns us to the same place where this investigation began. Its surface is still rough beneath the glass. The fibers remain visible where the material has worn thin. The ink is darker in some places and almost absent in others. There is no final diagram explaining every mystery. No surviving page gives humanity a complete map of heaven. What remains is a damaged witness carrying a consistent message. Knowledge exists beyond ordinary human reach, and the beings who possess that knowledge do not reveal everything simply because humanity wants to know. That is the boundary described throughout Enoch. The Watchers crossed it. Enoch approached it. The angels guarded it. And humanity remained on the other side. The significance becomes clearer when all the evidence is placed together. The Watchers are condemned for revealing knowledge that was not theirs to disclose. Enoch receives information through heavenly guides rather than discovering it independently. The astronomical passages describe celestial systems as ordered realities that must be explained to him. The visions of judgment reveal events beyond ordinary human perception. Across these sections, the same structure appears again and again. Information exists. Access is controlled. Revelation is selective. And crossing the boundary has consequences. This does not establish that angels are physically hiding a secret from scientists in the modern world. It does not prove that an undiscovered supernatural technology is being kept somewhere beneath the earth. It does not prove that every unexplained event is evidence of angelic intervention. But it does establish what the ancient text itself is claiming. There are realities humanity does not fully understand. There are forms of knowledge that the text places beyond ordinary human access. And there are heavenly beings whose relationship to that knowledge is different from ours. The manuscript discoveries make this even more significant because the concept is not something invented by modern internet culture. Enochic traditions existed in antiquity. Aramaic fragments from Qumran demonstrate that these writings circulated centuries ago. Later Greek and Ethiopic witnesses preserved the material across different periods and languages. The transmission is complicated, but the central themes survived. The book continued to speak about boundaries even while the manuscript itself crossed boundaries of time. From ancient Jewish communities to later Ethiopian scribes. From Aramaic fragments to Guizi manuscripts. From 19th century translations to modern editions. The text traveled. The question remained, what was Enoch allowed to know, and what was never shown to him? Perhaps that is why the final mystery is not the discovery of one missing sentence. It is the realization that the book never promises complete disclosure in the first place. Enoch is shown enough to understand that the universe contains structures beyond human sight, but he is not transformed into someone who possesses every answer. The revelation has a limit, and that limit may be the most important part. Because if everything had been revealed, there would be no boundary. If every secret had been explained, there would be nothing left outside the human field of knowledge. But Enoch leaves the reader standing at the edge. You can see the Watchers. You can see their punishment. You can see the heavenly journeys. You can see the ordered movements of the celestial bodies. You can see the judgment prepared for those who crossed forbidden lines. But you do not see everything. The final door remains closed. And that is where the ancient text ends its work, not by giving humanity every answer, but by showing that answers themselves can have boundaries. Return once more to the fragment beneath the glass. It is still there, still carrying the faded marks of an ancient hand, still preserving words about angels, boundaries, revelation, and knowledge. The parchment cannot tell us what lies beyond the final boundary, but it can tell us that ancient people believed the boundary existed. It can tell us that some heavenly beings were accused of crossing it. It can tell us that Enoch was permitted to see only what was revealed to him. And it can leave us with one conclusion that requires no exaggeration. The Book of Enoch does not confirm that modern humanity is being secretly controlled by angels. It confirms something more precise. It presents knowledge as restricted. It presents revelation as controlled. And it presents the unseen world as containing realities humanity does not possess complete access to. The fragment remains silent beyond that point. The ink ends.